Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Canola, and welcome back once again to another edition of the Movie Battleground. And today could not be a bigger match because we started this weekend our 2022 end of year Battleground Tournament. We've already had two great matches go up this weekend. We had yesterday Chad Webb versus Alejandro Hernandez, and earlier today, right before this match actually airs, we had JPO Jordan Owens take on Jay Burns. So following this match, because I'm not going to spoil them for you, there's no need to. Following this, go check those matches out because we had two great matches there. But I figured since we started our end of year tournament, we might as well wrap up the summer tournament, especially considering it's technically not even summer anymore. Although if you're like me and you live in Florida, it may still be like that. By the way, if this goes up on time, right now we're still being ravaged by a hurricane, and I have internet still, which is why it got uploaded. But with that said, we have Jeremy Adams and Amaru Moses, two guys who have been around the Battleground for a long time. They've both had great wins, great runs. And they have the opportunity right here to push themselves onto that title match to potentially be the person that could take down currently the man who looks undefeatable in Henry Sanchez. We will see how that goes. But first, we got to let these two great titans of the game take each other on and earn that chance. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it. Introducing first with a record of 6 wins, 1 defeat, he is Amaru Moses. Amaru, welcome back, sir. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm doing good. Ran home from work, took a shower, got on, and I'm ready to go. Jeremy is a dope competitor. I've actually been really excited for the chance to play him, so I can't wait to get into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I'm not obviously when you would have first started playing, back before we relaunched it. I'm not 100% aware of what anyone's records were or what the hell happened then. Nobody kept a document, really. Let's be real. So my question to you is, at least for the first time in a long time, maybe for the first time ever, you're right on the cusp of reaching that title match. How does it feel to you? How big would a win be in this moment right here?
It would be really cool, man. I debate no matter what league it's in, whether it's this one, the iteration before, Fan Zone, whatever they called that before that had some type of gasm in it, whatever. I've always gotten to the point of being able to get to a championship and play for a championship. So would be very excited to get back to it. I love trivia, but I debate. Like, debate is my thing. Like, I won't brag in trivia, even though I feel like I'm good at this. I know what I'm doing here. So to get back to another championship will just kind of solidify. I can continue to talk shit about this because I back it up. So I'm hoping to be able to continue to do that. Never usually against my opponent, just for myself. This is what I do. So I'm excited to hopefully continue to prove that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I mean, for what it's worth, if anyone wants to question your trivia skills on the trivia show that most everyone here watched, you beat almost everyone you played and only lost the title to who people consider the best of all time. So that's not really I wouldn't feel too bad about that. Your trivia skills are pretty sharp.
Let's see how the debate goes. Those questions. Those questions will haunt me for the rest of my life.
That's fair. There's no Back to the Future questions here, so you're safe. This is a safe space. We are all good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back, man, and bring in your opponent with a record of 5 wins, 2 defeats, and 2 knockouts. He is Jeremy the Atom Adams. Jeremy, welcome back, sir. How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's exciting to, have been back here playing for contenders match again. You made reference to the old Battleground League, and I did that in the old league, got to a championship, and like Amaru said, it's kind of excited to be back there. I love debating. Obviously trivia is kind of my forte, writing trivia questions, but debating is it's a different way of showing film knowledge and showing your love for film. So I'm excited to be here. I'm also pretty darn nervous. It's a great competitor and it's a high stakes match. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of comes with it. And yeah, I mean, you've been around for a long time. Obviously, I mean, you were in the very first title match we ever had. I feel like I should say, not that I'm encouraging people to go watch that, but I apologize. I've since watched that as a, person with a mind, and that was a shit show. I'll take that one on the shoulder. But you're back here again, and does it mean anything to you to get to that point, to get to go for that title again, or do you have to just set it aside and play this like a normal game?
It means something to me that I got here. I think, obviously the old league was one thing, but playing in the way that it's set up now with 3 judges in every match, with the level of competition that we have here with players like Amaru, that we have, the fact that, I have gotten to this place, especially playing in a tournament, which is, always a pressure cooker. I feel good about that. If I can get the win today and go for that championship again, that would be awesome. But whatever happens, I'm excited to be here, and I'm glad that I get to play a great opponent and play in a great match today. So whatever happens, I feel accomplished. The previous match, like I would have had, like that would have taken me down to a not so great record, but with just getting to this place and having the record that I have, I feel pretty good about things.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and bring in Amaru. Guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is a first to generally 3 points wins. We'll explain the caveat there later. Each round of debate is going to be worth 1 point. If a competitor wins 3 points in a row, the first 3 points, that will be a victory by knockout. If after the end of 4 rounds we are tied, we will go to the 5th round, which is our sudden death speed round in the number 1 contenders match. And that's different than a normal video. We'll explain that should we get there. In terms of the first 4, yeah, we can't hurt you here, Amaru. In terms of the first 4 questions, those are exactly the same and not blind. They get 60 seconds to open, 2 minutes to expand, 4 minutes of open discussion, followed by 60 seconds of closing. Backstage, I have 3 judges in Noah McCausland, Brandon Cohen, and Sean Hunter. They will join us on screen following the debates, at which point, based on what was said, they will make a deliberation. All right, with all that said, do you guys have anything to say before we get into this?
Just good luck, Amaru.
Good luck, Jeremy. Looking forward to it.
All right, well then let's go ahead and get into it. And we are going to start by talking about some classic cinema, which is not something that often comes up here because it's really hard to squeeze in references to classic cinema. Although I guess it is timely, not that this inspired the question in any way, but this weekend, I believe, is the weekend that Blonde releases on Netflix, which obviously talks about a lot of classic cinema in connection to Marilyn Monroe and a lot of other things about Marilyn Monroe, apparently. A lot of naked things from what I've heard. Good luck, internet, with that one. But let's focus on something else. The question here at hand is, which film released in the year 1960 that wasn't nominated for an Oscar should have been? That is the question. We're kind of shining a light on some of the more, I guess by theory, if we're using awards as the barometer, underseen, underrated, whatever you want to call it, films. And especially now that we're, 50 years, 60 years on from then, definitely 60 years, I think, on from then, maybe movies people need to go back and give a second chance to look at. So with that said, behind the scenes, because this was coming from the tournament, Jeremy, you were the higher seed in the tournament, so you got the choice of which questions to go first on. You chose to go first on the even questions, which means Amaru is going first on the odd questions. So as I go ahead and pull the timer in, first off, I want to wish you guys the best of luck. You're both incredible debaters, and you're here for a reason. Secondly, I want to thank you for making this the most schmodown marketable match I've ever had. This is my chance. And third, the timer will start when you begin speaking, Amaru.
We all know that the Oscars are fairly up their own ass a lot. They just dropped the ball on a lot of things. It took The Dark Knight not getting any nominations to change the Best Picture format to 10 pictures. People like Jim Carrey has never been nominated for an Oscar just because he's a quote-unquote silly comedian, things like that. And it's nice to know that this is not just a recent thing. They still were up their own ass in 1960 because there's a movie that literally pioneered the most studied, one of the most influential movements in all of cinema. The French New Wave movement is by far considered the most influential to directors like Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese. It changed the outlook and the way cinema was going after 1960. And the movie that I chose that wasn't nominated was A Bout de Souffle, or otherwise known as Breathless.
And that is time for the people at home. Breathless is the film pick there. All right, Jeremy, the timer will continue when you begin speaking.
Well, I will echo my esteemed colleague's sentiment that the Oscars have always been a little out of it, a little, they have the specific movies that they like to pick, and they will ignore very deserving films. And one of the categories, I brought this up in previous matches, where they really do not select films, they ignore them, is in the horror genre. And in 1960, one of my all-time favorite, the most unique horror films ever made came out. It's a British film called Village of the Damned. It starred George Sanders, and this is just a really unique film about one night there's some sort of event in a small town. All of the women in a certain area collapse, they're unconscious, and when they wake up, they're all pregnant, and they end up having these odd children with white hair, and it leads to a really, really interesting, disturbing, and riveting film, and it's a beautiful film, and that's why I'm going to argue that this film was snubbed for a Best Cinematography Oscar nomination.
And time. All right. And then, just because the wording of the question was set maybe a little vague, it didn't necessarily have to argue for Best Picture. We are just talking Oscars in general. So however they choose to run their arguments is up to them. It is more about what sells the judges on that particular argument. I just want to make sure that's out there, because sometimes people may read into it the wrong way. With that said, though, we do have Breathless versus Village of the Damned. Amaru, you are back up on it.
So Jean-Luc Godard is one of the pioneers of the French New Wave movement. He recently passed away, and again, the amount of directors that he has influenced, again, ranges from Tarantino to Scorsese to just tons of directors. And his I can't remember if it's his debut or his second film, Breathless, is considered one of the most studied movies of all time. And the fact that a movie so revolutionary was not nominated for an Oscar just proves how bad the Oscars are, and that it should have been nominated. And I'm going to go down the list from like least likely to the biggest reason why it shouldn't be nominated. And I'm going to start with the actors, John Paul Belmondo and Gene Seberg. They are absolutely charming as all hell. They are John Paul Belmondo is one of the first characters that is a guy you're rooting for, but he's not a protagonist. He's a bad guy. He's done bad stuff. And it's one of the first instances of seeing a character that you're like, I don't know if I should be rooting for him because he's such a bad guy, but damn it, I like him. And they're so charming. There's a 20-minute section of this film where they are in an apartment and they are doing nothing but talking, and your eyes are on them and you are riveted the entire time. Seeing that they might get snubbed, sure, cool. So let's move on to the real reason why they should have deserved a nomination. And one of the key things that Breathless did, that the French New Wave movement did, is their editing. It is one of the first movies to do jump cut edits that become its own storytelling in the movie. There's a scene where they're driving in the car and the camera is on the back of G. Singberg's head, and her movement doesn't look cut, but you can tell jump cuts are happening from one scene to one setting to the next, and you can tell the passage of time. And that kind of storytelling was never told. So that revolutionary editing, that revolutionary kind of acting should have made Breathless be nominated for Best International Feature, and I don't know why it wasn't.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you.
So yeah, talking about Village of the Damned. This is just a really brilliant film. It was directed by a German filmmaker named Wolf Ria. The cinematography was by a gentleman named Jeffrey Faithful. Now, this guy in England had a heck of a long career. He started as a cinematographer in 1916, continued to the late 1960s. This was one of his later films. And you just see the mastery in telling this really creepy story, the beautiful black and white vistas of the small town, when you see the way that these people live. George Sanders is a school teacher in the town, and then when this event happens and you go forward and you have these creepy kids with their white hair, the way that they're lit, it just always strikes your eye, and they're just unforgettable images of these children. The way that they're odd, and you grow to learn that they actually have telepathic abilities. There are scenes where they're using their abilities to mess with people's minds and control them. The way that the camera shows close-ups of these kids, they actually held the young actors like still while they would go close up on them and show their faces as they are doing what they're doing. And there's a great visual effect in the film where they're actually using their abilities. They would interpose their eyes on top of their eyes using a photographic effect, but their eyes are actually in reverse on what was put on top of it. It's just really innovative, unforgettable images. And, you know, this is, like I said, this movie was probably never even thought of for an Oscar that year. This isn't something that, you know, gets the respect that it should, but this is imagery. This is craftsmanship that, you know, made this kind of a cult classic for years and years. The images, the photography of this film have really lasted with fans of this genre. And there are other movies that were nominated that year. A comedy called The Facts of Life, which is your basic kind of comedy. Inherit the Wind, which is a really strong courtroom drama, but it's your basic sort of play-like photography that just aren't on the same level.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into the 4-minute open discussion. As always, a friendly reminder to keep it as even as possible and try not to talk over each other and play nice. But, of course, you're trying to win, so take that for what you will. That said, time starts when the first person begins speaking.
All right, so it seems like both of our movies did deserve to get nominated for an Oscar, but only one of ours is one that if you go to, it seems like they're both unknown. I'll tell you the truth. I didn't hear of either of these before we started, but only Breathless is the one that I continuously looked into movie circles and saw how revolutionary it was, how important it was, how much the director and this movie in general, in its editing specifically, just changed cinema. While when I watched Village of the Damned, you called it unique. I watched it and I was like, this is a good movie, but it's another run-of-the-mill mystery that really isn't answered at the end, which is okay, but you got to leave me thinking about something. And it didn't leave me thinking about something. But you mentioned cinematography, and you said it should be nominated for cinematography. And I see where you're coming from. However, two things. One, if your cinematographer had a long career by then, you know the Oscars usually give legacy awards. So they probably were like thinking of the guy in general. And if he hasn't gotten that, that means a lot of people weren't thinking of them. But on top of that, my movie, which I think should have won Best International Feature compared to a lot of other movies that just, again, I've never seen, heard, or wasn't brought up in my research. It's the technical award of editing and how revolutionary it was that I think is much more important, much more deserving than a fairly good cinematography technique that the Oscars did overlook.
Well, you're talking about how groundbreaking your film is and how it holds up about today, but your film was part of a movement. There were several other films at that same time by other filmmakers like Francois Truffaut and the French New Wave. These were all contemporaries of each other, and they were all doing, you know, groundbreaking things. The 400 Blows, the Truffaut film, came out the year before, actually did win the Oscar for international feature. Your film, yeah, it was part of that movement. It did new things, new techniques. It had a lot of impact at the time, but impact doesn't necessarily mean quality. I think that, to me, this film is actually, you know, that doesn't quite hold. I think that it's groundbreaking in terms of it did something new with the genre. They took the crime genre like that we would see in American films, and they made it street level with this French guy and these kids. But I think that the movie's actually pretty shallow. I think that the Belmondo character, he's a one-note character, really. I don't feel the depth there, and I think that what Godard was doing was setting things up for other filmmakers later on to really run with it, to go to films that that also added to the genre in unique ways. Films like Les Samurai, which was a French film, films like The Usual Suspects years later. These are films that I think hold up better and stand the test of time better. Yes, it was an innovative film, but there were a lot of other innovative films in that genre. And I think that the photography involved in the film that I'm talking about isn't just your standard thing. I think that the cinematographer was ignored because he's from England. He isn't one of the Hollywood guys. The film was ignored. And the way that those images are made indelible, the way that you feel the place and the time in the small town in that film is something really unique. And it inspired a lot of horror filmmakers. I think it inspired like Night of the Living Dead, which is a horror film in a small town. It has influence. And I think as a film, it is more enjoyable in that genre. It still really holds up better than Breathless, which is a little dated in some ways.
It's dated because it's old, but as is yours. Again, you just said it. Groundbreaking in action doesn't mean quality. And again, I watch Village of the Damned, and sure, you might have groundbreaking cinematography, but the movie itself is also run-of-the-mill. It didn't mean anything more than Psycho that came out the same year. And just like yours was ignored, mine is ignored because it's a comedy as well as an international feature. And again, most studied film
and ever. Time. All right, so we have 1 minute left on the clock for each competitor. Amaru, you are back up when ready.
In either way you want to call it on why it deserves an Oscar, whether or not you want to focus on how revolutionary it was, how it influenced so many directors, and how overall it should have been nominated for Best International Feature, or according to Jeremy's argument, that it's not that great of a feature, but it has that groundbreaking editing that, again, told the story that had never been told before and influenced so many other films with the jump cut editing. It deserved to be nominated for an Oscar more than Village of the Damned because it is the one that has the lasting legacy. There might be, of course, there are other films that were thought of, because Breathless is the first one. Every list I've seen, every community you talk to who's into movies, Breathless is the one that is brought up as the one that is snubbed for that Oscar, especially for jump cuts. While Village of the Damned, it's a run-of-the-mill horror movie whose cinematography was great, but it's never really talked about anywhere outside of that.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you for the final minute.
Again, being the first, doesn't mean that it's the best and that it should have gotten the Oscar nomination that year. If we're looking at international feature, there's a film. The film that got the nomination from France is called La Vérité. This is a film by the director Georges Clouzot. It did great thrillers. It stars the iconic Brigitte Bardot. That, to me, is a more involving, interesting story about a young woman who's involved in a suicide attempt and then gets prosecuted for it. Yes, Breathless was part of this film New Wave movement. It was more street level. It was more filming, out in the street and doing unique things. But there were a lot of films doing that. And La Vérité, I would have given my vote to that film. And in terms of Village of the Damned for cinematography, there aren't other horror movies that filmed their villains in this way. The finale of the film, in which the lead character is trying to think of an image to block the minds of the kids trying to read his mind, and he sees a brick wall and it keeps cutting to it. Such unique images, so well filmed. I think that Breathless, there are other films that even Godard did that did it better later on.
In time. All right. All right. Thank you guys so much. An excellent first debate. I'm going to go ahead and throw both of you guys in the back as I bring our judges into the stream. I have just a couple of quick fact checks to clean up here. All right. So the first one is Breathless was Jean-Luc Godard's first film. He had spent 5 years prior to it directing short films, but Breathless is his first feature-length film. It's also the first film that was available internationally. Cinematographer Jeffrey Faithfull was at the tail end of his career when he shot Village of the Damned. His earliest credit is in 1916 with the film Molly Bond. His final credit would come just a few years later in 1966 on the film Naked Evil. In terms of talking about French New Wave, which is one of those things in film that's not really around anymore, but it inspired a lot of what's around today, Jean-Luc Godard is accredited with being one of the spearheads of it, along with the other mentioned Francois Truffaut, also Eric Romer, Claude Charbot, and Jacques Rivette. I apologize, I'm not French, sorry if I mispronounced any of those, are accredited with really creating and popularizing the genre. And both films that were mentioned by either one of our competitors, Godard's Breathless and Truffaut's The 400 Blows, are the two films that are credited with really starting it. The 400 Blows did come out first. The 400 Blows was nominated for an Academy Award. However, it was not in Best Foreign Film or International Film, as it was known at the time. It's actually in Best Original Screenplay, although it did not win. When talking about The Night of the Living Dead, though obviously someone could discern and take the opinion that Village of the Damned may have inspired it, George Romero himself has said that the inspirations for Night of the Living Dead are obviously the Richard Matheson novel I Am Legend. Most people know that now as a Will Smith movie, and also The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock's horror film. And then when talking about the jump cut, technically, the jump cut was created back in 1896 by French director Georges Méliès as a result of the camera basically malfunctioning. That's the best way to describe it. The camera malfunctioned and it created what we knew as the jump cut. However, to its credit, Breathless is the thing that popularized it in modern film. And then finally, yes, the year that this movie would have received a nomination in foreign language film, France did already have a nominee in La Vérité. So with that said, judges, based on what was said in the arguments, I'm going to go to Noah first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
First, I apologize for all the noise around me. I'm in a very crowded area right now. But just hearing about the French New Wave just makes my little film school kid heart so happy. But that's not what made me choose Amaru for this question. I just feel like he stressed the importance of this film and what it did for cinema as a whole. While Jeremy, he brought up some points with his movie about why it should have been in cinematography. He won for at least nominated for cinematography and wasn't. But I felt like he wasn't really able to undermine Amaru's argument, and I felt like he tended to go after the movie itself instead of trying to go for its impression on the film world. I know he did mention a lot of things about how Jean-Luc Godard did better with his later movies, and like some of the French directors that were also part of the French New Wave were also doing it, but I just didn't feel like he was able to tear down Amaru's argument. So,
okay, Brandon, I'll go down to you then. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, so this was close because I had never heard of either of these movies. And I had someone written down during that middle round because I thought they were doing a really good job of countering the importance of the other film, but then just didn't follow it up with anything. So when it got to the closing arguments, I think Amaru just was the one that was like, which one should be nominated and why? And I knew why he wanted to, or why he wanted his film nominated. I didn't know enough, coming out of that closing round, like why Village of the Damned. He didn't say enough of what Village of the Damned, right? Jeremy spent too much time of, there was other better French films that could release later on, but we're talking about 1960. And Amaru was kind of focusing on like the importance of this film. And then he talked a little bit about what was happening in 1960. Jeremy just didn't do enough to push his film over that hump.
Okay. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit. For what it's worth, I think Sean voted for Jeremy there. We'll go ahead and put you guys in the back and bring the competitors back into the stream. Sorry, Sean, I took your plate spotlight away. We'll bring it back next time. We'll go ahead and move on to question number 2 here, which is the exact opposite of films in 1960s. But I would say we're focusing on somebody who certainly has been leading smaller dramas and maybe to an extent independent film over the last few years since she entered the scene in the late 2000s. She has been considered one of the biggest up-and-coming actresses, and it's insane to be around for this long and still be considered an up-and-coming actress, because I don't even believe she's 30 yet, which is insane to think about how long you can be in the spotlight technically without making something. And so the question here is, what is the best Saoirse Ronan film? And it is pronounced Saoirse. I'm Irish. Listen, I know it's spelt fucking weird. I get it. It just, that's what they do over there. Okay. With that said, Jeremy, Amaru went first last time. Jeremy, you are up first on this one. I will go ahead and give you the timer, and it will start when you begin speaking.
Yeah, I believe that the best Saoirse Ronan film is the most recent remake of Little Women. I think that this is a really tremendous film on many different levels. One level, it's a tremendous platform for Saoirse Ronan playing a character from literature, Jo March. I think that she brings so much to this character in terms of being a member of a family, of having sisters, and also being someone who's trying to be a professional woman in a time when that wasn't really encouraged. And it was really kind of going against the grains of society. I think this is also a great film in terms of being an adaptation. This is a very famous book from the 1800s that had been made many times, many film adaptations. And I think this is a really wonderful update, the way that the director and screenwriter Greta Gerwig updates the material, moves things around, makes it interesting in unique ways. And I also just think it's a really inspiring movie in terms of the characters, the heart and the joy in the performance.
And time. All right. Amaru, over to you.
I don't watch many Saoirse Ronan films. One, not usually interested in them, but I will very much admit when I actually do get around to watching them, they are very, very, very good. But even when I watch them, big thing about me with a lot of her films, which with See How They Run coming out, I'm very interested because it's so much different than her movies that I've seen that are really slow, usually a little bit boring, not as interesting, and really hard to not rewatchable. So for me, the movie that I picked that's the best for Saoirse Ronan film, which is very hard because they're all very good. For me, it's Lady Bird, and the biggest reason is it is as regal and as well acted, as well written, as well directed as a lot of our other films. But this is the one that is actually interesting. This is the one that I'm intrigued by all the characters. It's a coming of age film that I hadn't seen before. And it's just authentic, it's real, and it's something you want to go back to while the rest of them.
And time. All right. See How They Run. That's what it's called. In my head, I'm thinking there's a movie that just came out. There's a reason I wrote this. Yes, See How They Run is in theaters. That's why I thought of this. Her and Sam Rockwell in an Agatha Christie inspired mystery, and if you've seen the movie, you know why that's a very literal sentence. With that said, though, for anyone asking out there, no, I'm not doing a what is the best Greta Gerwig film when Barbie comes out. We'll just point to this question. It's basically the same argument. With that said, though, Jeremy, back over to you, sir.
Yeah, so it is interesting if you haven't noticed by now that both of our films are Greta Gerwig films. And I think that, Lady Bird is a really good introduction of her as an artist. It is a unique coming of age story, but I don't think that I think that there are a lot of coming of age stories. You really saw a movement of them in like the 90s and the 2000s. I think that that Lady Bird is true to who Greta Gerwig is, but I think it's like the kind of movie you would see a director make for the first time. It's like okay, they made that movie. What are they going to do next? They made their coming of age movie. They put some quirky details in it, did their thing. But I think that she really stepped up to a whole other level with her second film, Little Women. For one thing, I was one of the people saying, why is there another Little Women? We just had an adaptation in the 90s that was really good with Winona Ryder. Do we need another one? And I think that it really showed the elevated confidence, the elevated skill of Greta Gerwig as a filmmaker to make Little Women such a unique version from the earlier ones. The screenplay is so genius in jumping back and forth between Jo as an older person trying to be a professional in New York to when she was a younger person with her sisters. I think that Amaru talked about how a lot of Saoirse Ronan's movies are kind of staid and they're not really that involving. But I think that Greta Gerwig took one of the great American works of literature and she made it involving. She brought all of that reality that we felt in Lady Bird to Little Women. I think that the relationship between Florence Pugh's Amy and Saoirse Ronan's Jo is, you really get how there's push and pull there. They kind of hate each other at certain times, but in the end, they love each other. They're sisters. I think that there's a scene where Amy burns a book that Jo has written that is so agonizing. You just feel it. I think you feel it more deeply than anything, even in Lady Bird, and it really shows the power of updating this material.
Time. All right, back over to you, Amaru.
Ladybird is a coming of age film like none other that you've kind of ever seen. And you especially figure that out very quickly in its cold open with Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf in the car, just going at it with each other. The how real and how brazen and how mean and how living in its own faults this movie is summed up in those 15 minutes to let you know what ride you're going on. So much so that the scene of Saoirse Ronan jumping out of the car is in every single montage, probably for the rest of movie history. Like, that's how real and authentic it is. Laurie Metcalf should have won that Best Supporting Actress Oscar. Allison Janney was amazing, and then I saw this film. I was like, no, because Laurie Metcalf, the authenticity of her taking her childhood trauma of how her mom was abusive to her, and she's trying so much to love Lady Bird, but just brings it on to her. She can't help it. That kind of relationship between them two, and how Lady Bird just takes that and becomes really authentic out in the world, and how she's feeling, not how she's acting, because she's authentic in wanting to be called Lady Bird. She's authentic when she wants to be a part of the cool crew. So she is going into how fact like she would give up her friend. She starts lying about things because it's so authentic and how much she's in her own faults. And there's not a lot of coming of age films that shine a light on how traumatic adolescence can be for adults, for families. But at the same time, you have performances by Tracy Letts as the father and Beanie Phillips as the friend that bring that warmth and that kindness and that levity to kind of balance out. So you're not looking there, you're not watching the film just being sad, but you're watching us so intrigued and so interested that you're like, this is a coming of age movie I've never seen before, and it's opening for the ages.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion when the first competitor speaks.
Yeah, I would say that you said this is a one-of-a-kind coming-of-age film, Lady Bird. I mean, there are a lot of great coming-of-age films that showed the agony of young women growing up. There was a film in the 90s called Welcome to the Dollhouse. I think that this is a good version of that, but I would argue that, there are great moments of reality that you mentioned, like you're jumping out of the car and stuff, but I think that the film... with a lot of first-time directors, it's a little bit it's like a series of episodes. Like there's the whole episode where she dates the manager, the young guy who turns out to be gay, the episode where she loses her virginity. These are like the same kind of things a lot of these other films have covered, and it's very episodic, and it doesn't really, pull you through. It's like a lot of other kind of indie cinema. And I think that she was able to take what she was doing, the reality and all the good stuff that she was doing in Lady Bird, and then go to Little Women and deal with this really great piece of material, but hone it and really get in there into the way that you'll have a scene of Jo in New York when she's older, and then she's trying to write a story about her life, and then you jump back and you see the moments in her life. And I think that you really relate to these people in the 1800s just as much as you do in Lady Bird. And I think that the filmmaking is so much more finely honed in a way. It doesn't feel like we're going from episode to episode. It all feels like a piece of literature. It's very written. Everything's connected to a main theme and where the arc of Jo's character is going.
High school is a bunch of episodes. That's what high school is. And what Lady Bird does to get you through that is the through point is the relationships. The through points are the performances to get you through what coming of age is going to be. Again, Laurie Metcalf is absolutely brilliant. Saoirse Ronan is amazing as Lady Bird. And then Beanie Phillips and Tracy Letts brings that warmth, so you're not feeling down the entire time. And it's really those performances that really puts it just a step above the greatness that is Little Women, because both of our movies can be said to have been seen before. And mine, because it's quote, it's coming of age, so those are kind of alike. And yours, because this is about the third, fourth, fifth time that this movie has been remade. But the biggest reason why your movie is not as interesting as me as Lady Bird is because two of the biggest roles in Little Women just have zero passion coming out of them. And that's punchable face, Timothy Chalamet, and that's Laura Dern. Just his story, his connection to both Amy and Joe are essential parts of the love triangle, the love story. And every time he's just sitting there with Florence Pugh just spewing her heart, being the petulant daughter or the petulant little sister, or the more mature older version of that, or Joe being the woman who doesn't want to conform to society. You then have Timothy Chalamet just speaking kind of like his SNL skit where he's the mumble rapper, and you're like, dude, come on. And then Laura Dern, I love Laura Dern, but I think in that same year, she did the same thing she did in Marriage Story, where she's just people saying she's so good, and you're waiting for her to be good, and she has one scene where she's great, when she gives that scarf, but then it's like, that's it. The lines you're giving of how it is, it's just, you don't feel it.
I think that you had a personal reaction to Timothy Chalamet in a couple of the performances. I would say that, my cast is obviously the equal of your, if not better than yours. When you have Florence Pugh and Emma Watson acting their hearts out in these roles, you have Meryl Streep, you have a really wonderful small role from Bob Odenkirk. And I don't agree about Timothy Chalamet. I think that he is a very indecisive character who doesn't know what he wants. I think he gets that across, and I think he actually is better than he is in Lady Bird as kind of that nothing guy that she loses her virginity to. And I don't really think any of that makes it better.
All right, so we're going into the 1 minute closings. Jeremy, you are back up first when ready.
Yeah, one of the things that makes Little Women so unique, and not just another adaptation like Amaru was saying, is the fact that, Greta Gerwig follows the theme of this being about a woman who, has lived this life. It's important with her family, with her sisters. It's an important part of her, but she wants to go beyond that. She wants to be a writer, and she writes about her life. But then the brilliant thing that Greta Gerwig does in her screenplays at the end, the editor wants her to change the ending so that the character that's based on her marries some guy and then is happy with him, and then starts like an orphanage with the family, and it's like the ending that you expect. And that was the ending in the novel, but by showing that kind of in a meta way, like that's not really what Jo would want for her life, but that's what she would write to try to sell her book. It's really genius, and it really points to what is going on in this that makes it so unique. And it's even a step above just telling a coming of age story, and in an episodic way that just flows one to the other.
All right, and then Amaru, back over to you.
Both of our films are deserving of the praise that they got. Greta Gerwig and Saoirse Ronan have proven in both of those films that they are a great pair, that they're great actors, that they're great directors. Both of the films have taken stories that we've seen before and made them different, made them mine a little bit more interesting than Jeremy's and Little Women, but deserve that praise. The big difference, though, is that while both of our casts are stacked, my cast has not a flaw in it. And two of the biggest cast members in Little Women, in Timothy Chalamet and Laura Dern, just don't have the passion when delivering their lines, kind of just don't fit in with the rest of the cast in terms of how they're acting. And that affects how much you're interested in the story because they're such big parts. That affects you getting over the things you can see from a mile away, like the tenant, knowing he's going to come back at the end and be the love interest. Lady Bird just hits at all different levels, while Little Women is a little under.
All right, another excellent round, guys. I'll go ahead and put you in the back as I bring the judges in here. So the only real fact checker thing to bring up for this round is the Little Women adaptation. A lot of people may not know, Little Women hasn't just been adapted a couple of times. It's actually been adapted 7 different times. The first adaptation was in 1917. It was a silent black and white film, although you can't find this one because it's actually considered a lost film. There's no, as far as it's aware, there's no remaining footage from the film. We just know that it was made. Another silent film was released in 1918. In 1933, the first adaptation that included dialogue and sound was released, starring Katharine Hepburn as Jo. In 1949, the first colored adaptation was released, and that one featured Elizabeth Taylor as a part of the cast. The most famous of them is the 1994 adaptation, which starred Winona Ryder and Kirsten Dunst, among others. And then in 2018, 1 year before this film, there was actually a contemporary set in modern day adaptation that was made in celebration of the 150th anniversary of the novel, with, of course, Greta Gerwig's coming in 2019. But with that said, Brandon, I'll go up to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
So, again, another super close one. But I was in the middle. It kind of became of like whose cast was better type debate. Like, oh, this cast is better, or this cast is better, and they started going back and forth on the cast a little bit. But then Jeremy started bringing up the screenplay, the editing, and it more than just what's the best Sorcerer in a cast, what's the best Sorcerer. It's what's the best film with Sorcerer in it. So I went with Jeremy just because the way he brought in the director and told us kind of the little things that Greta Gerwig was doing and taking this movie that we've seen before and kind of translating it to the modern era. So I went with Jeremy.
All right. We'll go down to Sean next. Bless us with your plate, sir. Who gets your vote, and what was the selling point?
Yeah, this was tough for me. Both competitors really brought it. I'm definitely taking some notes of how to debate well. For me, in the end, I just felt like one of them talked a little bit more of the other aspects of their film other than just the acting and how their film could stood out, even though it's been adapted so many times. So I'm going with Jeremy.
All right. Guys, thank you so much once again. We'll go ahead and put you in the back and go on to question number 3. Keep this match flowing, keep it going competitive. And this question is a viewer-submitted question. If this happens to be your first match watching the show, hi, welcome. It's been 100 episodes. Go check them out. But if you want to see your question debated on the Movie Battleground, I do have an email. It is officialaarancanola@gmail.com. Send your questions there. I use every single question that is submitted to me. How long it'll be till it's used, I don't know, but it'll get used eventually. So that is the question here. And so moving into our match, the question that we are being asked was submitted to us by Austin Howell. And the question is, what is the best sword and sandals film of the 2000s? And we have 2 great picks here. But if you don't happen to know at home what a sword and sandals film is, I'm going to use maybe the most overt answer that wasn't picked, because there's a lot of swords, there's a lot of sandals, and there's a lot of abs. Troy with Brad Pitt. That is a sword and sandals movie that wasn't picked because, in my opinion, honestly, it's just not very good. But with that said, yeah, sorry, man, it's not. It's not. We're going to go ahead and get into this. It's okay, that's not the debate, and I'm not challenging. I've been here before. I don't need to do that again. So we'll go ahead and get into it. With that said, though, it is going to go back to Amaru to go first when you are ready, sir.
When you watch a Sword and Sandals film, you want epicness in everything. You want an epic story. You want an epic scope of where it is. You want epic acting. You want epic action and epic directing. And there is no better film that just hits on every single level. It's in the 2000s and very arguably of all time than Gladiator. I just got done shitting on the Oscars. They got this one right. They got this best picture right. They got this best actor right. But we're not arguing that. We're just arguing in terms of Sword and Sandals. This movie is just so compelling. I think it's one of the earliest films I've ever just at the end of the film, I sat there and just wanted to not move. How great the action is when there's only really one war scene. How great the acting is. How much Joaquin Phoenix and Russell Crowe make you want to hate or love them. Just how the story about revenge is so lovely. It's
and
brilliant.
Time. All right, Jeremy, over to you for your opening minute, sir.
Yeah, looking at the 2000s, this was a really a period of comic book movies when there was a really explosion. We were getting the first wave of really great superhero movies. Great filmmakers were making them. And then kind of in the middle of this, people started taking comic book material that was a little bit different and doing more than just the superhero stuff. And one of these filmmakers was Zack Snyder, who came along and adapted a really cool comic book sort of storybook by Frank Miller called 300, which is based on the historical period of the 300 Spartans and the Battle of Thermopylae. But this was the comic itself was like this oversaturated, larger than life kind of propaganda telling of that story. And Zack Snyder, who is, a pretty new filmmaker, made the Dawn of the Dead remake, just brought amazing visuals to make a piece of propaganda comic pulp that's like no other.
Time. All right. So we have Gladiator versus 300. Amaru, back over to you.
Gladiator story is one of the most just gripping revenge tales that is not just about revenge. Russell Crowe's ability to show his love for his slain family and the love that he has for everybody around him that he respects, how he doesn't want to take the emperorship that Marcus Aurelius gives to him lightly. He wants to make sure that it's not only the fact that his family got killed, but Marcus Aurelius's dying wish was to take the emperorship and make Rome a republic again. His revenge story is not just let me get you back, let me get Commodus back, Joaquin Phoenix's character, for killing my family. It's for killing Rome. It's for killing the dream. In every single scene, every single piece of acting, every amazing shot that Ridley Scott does just shows how important this one gladiator who went from general to slave, and from slave back to the most powerful man in Rome, because he took the heart of every single person that he came to. His family, Commodus' sister, Marcus Aurelius, who usurped his own son for power, his slaves around him, and Djimon Hounsou's character of Juba, who become his partner. Then the people in the Colosseum, from one scene to the next. That revenge story is your through line that allows you to, one, start off with an absolutely epic and brutal and real war scene, and then you don't get war anymore. You just get gladiator fights, and you get gladiator battles. And there are not gladiator battles or pieces of action in Sword and Sandal that aren't more iconic, more gripping than having the tigers, having the guy with the mask coming down, having them chained together and fighting to the death. In every, from the acting to the directing to Connie Nielsen being fear for her life for Joaquin Phoenix being one of the most hated villains of all time, Richard Harris being the father that wants to give Russell Crowe everything because you love him to death. It is a masterpiece.
All right. And then Jeremy, over to you, sir.
Yeah, I just think in the middle of all these comic book adaptations that we were getting, just out of nowhere came this movie 300, which I think is just, it was just a unique breath of fresh air. It's like an explosion of comic book imagery, taking a historical story, throwing masculinity, testosterone, just all this craziness just exploding on the screen. The imagery in this film using, computer graphics to kind of overlay combat and then eventually big battles when we have elephants. And it just looks so like comic book, but in a way that's really gripping, and you're engaged in the action and everything of it, even though it's got this really unique look that no other film had done up to that point. And it's you begin it with one of the soldiers telling the story, and then at the end, after the battle, the same guy's telling the story. It frames it so that we know this is all a piece of propaganda. This is somebody telling the story of what happened so that story will continue forward to inspire more war and more battle. I think that's such a unique way to kind of go into this material where it's like, this is propaganda. This is crazy. This is over the top, but it really gets your blood pumping. And that is so kind of like underhanded in a way, because that's the whole point. They're trying to get people's blood pumping. They're trying to tell this story to make people go rah, rah, rah. There's like a level of satire almost to it that's so unique that makes it both a visual and kind of a satirical storytelling masterpiece. And I think that the characters are just as engaging and involving as Gladiator or any other film. I think Gerard Butler, it's his signature role as King Leonidas. He's just so amazing in this. I think that Lena Headey as his wife is an incredible female character. And there's just a great supporting cast of all the soldiers, Michael Fassbender being one of them. They're so muscular and get you into everything. And you're involved even though you know that it's crazy propaganda. It's so cool.
All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
I just want to say, Amaru, you're talking about, how great like the opening battle scene of Gladiator is. It's actually hard to see. I don't think that Ridley Scott was in command of his visual language in this film. I think that the opening battle is very dark. It's dim. I think that once you get into the arena, there's some choppy editing and stuff that takes you out a little bit. I don't think that Gladiator is a movie that Ridley Scott was really passionate to make. I think that, it's kind of a not really based. It makes you think this is a great, important historical film, but it's really not true to the history at all. It's the same kind of story structure that we've seen in like Braveheart and Spartacus and all these other films. And Ridley Scott does that, and he does it on a big scale, but I don't think that it has the visual strength to really pull you in and really be as unique as it should be. And I think that Zack Snyder was 1000% knew exactly what he was doing visually with 300 from beginning to end. I think that this has the style and the personality that Gladiator in terms of the filmmaking really doesn't have.
I don't agree with you on the visuals. I don't agree with you that you can't tell what's going on. I'm pretty sure it was actually nominated for Best Visual Effects. I can't remember if it's film editing, but it was nominated for at least 5 awards, 3 of them which were technical. But even if you want to go with that argument, your movie is style over substance. It has to lean on Zack Snyder's style in order to get everything that it needs. My movie is substance over everything, and it's the style that every sword and sandal movie wants to emulate. Everything about 300 is done better in Gladiator without all those visuals that you need to lean on Zack Snyder. Maximus is just as iconic, probably more iconic than Leonidas. It is Russell Crowe's key role. It is the role he's known for, the one he won Best Actor for. And it's definitely goes toe-to-toe with Leonidas without having all the pomp and circumstances. Are You Not Entertained is just as well known and just as impactful as This Is Sparta. And again, it's not a movement. It's not a part that comes at a slow motion right after. It's in the middle of one of the first Gladiator scenes, and you remember it. The villain, Commodus, Joaquin Phoenix's ability to make you hate him for being so petulant, it's also got nominated for an actor, and it just makes you want to root against him so much. And Rodrigo Santoro as Xerxes, I don't even remember the dude that much, except when he bled. Look, all of Gladiator gets your blood pumping because of story, because of acting, because of action, because of every aspect of a 2-hour and 40-minute movie. It's so hard to keep your attention for 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it does it with everything. So I don't agree with your visual argument, but even if you want to bring that in, that maybe it's a little hard to see, you are still in it for 2 hours and 40 minutes, while 300 is a stylized version of everything Gladiator.
I would argue with you on the substance of Gladiator. I think that it is the standard. This guy, they killed his family. He's got to get revenge. The emperor, the character played by Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix puts his all into it, but he's a pretty one-dimensional, just bad guy. He's just evil from the beginning. There isn't really much to him. I think that the female lead character in this is really kind of just a victim. I don't think that the movie is as true to her as it could be. I think that this is a film that, yeah, if you watch it, you can get wrapped up in it. But if you take a step back and you look at movies like Spartacus and look at movies like Braveheart, I think that they were more, there's more substance in those films. I think that Gladiator, Ridley Scott was just doing it, and he was doing it big, but I don't think that it really has the substance. And I don't think it's totally honest about what it is. I think that it tries to make you think that it's an important history, and it's really just the same hero journey repackaged again.
I'll wait for the time to expire for that
one. All right. Well, time has expired. Amaru, you have 1 minute on the clock, sir.
You said Joaquin Phoenix is evil from the jump, but one of the first scenes you see is him crying and showing all the emotion to his father, Marcus Aurelius, about how all he wanted was love from his father, and he understood his own faults. And that scene where he is just when he finds out he's not going to become the emperor and pours his heart out knowing I'm not a great person, but I just wanted your love, maybe doesn't turn you on to actually getting to like him, but at least makes you empathize. And if you can empathize, you can allow for a great evil character to go to be that much more impactful. Connie Nielsen is a character about a mother's love and a woman who also loved Maximus, but knew it wasn't something that was meant to be. So they give her a lot to do there. And the revenge you talked about, it's not just a revenge upon his family. It's revenge on the idea of Rome, on the idea of Marcus Aurelius wanting to give democracy back to the people, while 300 tries to do all of that, but fails.
And time. All right. And then Jeremy, back over to you. Final minute of the round.
I will give you that Joaquin had the good scene at the beginning of the film, and then there's over 2 hours of him just being a one-note villain. And I think that the Connie Nielsen character, being in love with Maximus and not being able to be with him, we saw that exact same storyline with the princess in Braveheart. I think that Gladiator, it's dressed up to make you think that it's this big, important movie. But when you really look at other films and you look at it in terms of its story, there isn't as much. It's not as honest about how important it is. It's this guy was wronged. He's going to become a gladiator. He's going to kick ass. And it isn't the most visually compelling version of that. It isn't the most committed director making that. 300 tells you right away what it is. This is a raw visual spectacle. I think that every actor knows their assignment. They're totally invested. And I think that Queen Gorgo, played by Lena Headey, is an inspiring female character. I think that the real villain in that film is Dominic Cooper's character, the senator, who she ends up taking out. Leonidas doesn't. I think that this is it's a more memorable, it's a more unique, and it knows what it is more than Gladiator. It commits to it.
All right. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back as I bring in the judges for the deliberation here. The only real fact check that I had to look up was in connection to Gladiator's Academy Awards. So the film in total was nominated for 12 nominations. It won 5, but specifically because they were talking about nominations and wins on the visual aspect. The film did win Best Visual Effects. It was also nominated for Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, and Best Film Editing. With that said, Sean, I'll go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
This is such a great match. This was another tough one. What makes the movie, the visuals or the story, the substance of it? Both different sides of the argument were being told. But I just felt like Jeremy kept repeating some of his points over and over and never expanded on things. And I just heard more from Amaru, so I'm going with him.
All right. And then down to you, Noah.
Talk about battle scenes. Holy shit, this was a fucking battle. This is probably the hardest round I've ever had to judge. You guys just kept going back and forth, and you kept refuting points. I don't know how we're going to come to a decision, but we have to. Jeremy really hounded the visual side and the visual argument, saying that his was just more visually stunning than Gladiator, and the Gladiator had a lot of faults, especially when it came to like the fight scenes and the Gladiator scenes, and you can't really see the battle. But all in all, I think the story argument wins. I'm going to go Amaru just because he was able to argue it's not just a basic revenge story. It's also a revenge for Rome, and just the career-defining performance by Russell Crowe and just everyone else in there, including Commodus, just being so hated, and the great scene that he has in the beginning. Amaru was just able to bring out a couple more points and able to refute some of Jeremy's. So, Amaru.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I'll go ahead and sit you guys in the back, and we will move on to question number 4 here in the game. So this one's just a personal fun one. I've been rewatching the Harry Potter films recently, and they're just great. They're a lot of fun. And as anyone who's been around for a while knows, that because we've had all these Wizarding World exhibitions this year, I took the category off limits because they're like, unless you really, really dive deep into it, there's only so many, which I did. There's only so many that you can ask about a set of 13 films. You can only split that atom so many ways. However, because of behind the scenes issues, we ended up not needing one or two questions with our exhibition matches, which meant I had a spare one to throw at these guys. So they're going to get a Wizarding World question. The question is, what is the most useful Wizarding World spells of all time? That grammar is horrible. So the question at hand, account for my bad writing, is what are the most useful spells from the Wizarding World? And because I realized after I thought of the question that arguing for one spell may be hard, they were allowed to pick two. So they are going to be arguing for the two most useful spells from the Wizarding World series of films. With that said, Jeremy, you are up first, so the timer will start when you begin speaking.
I'm sorry, Aaron. I know this is a little unprecedented, but the question as I got it was which Harry Potter spells would be the most useful in the real world? Is that what we're arguing?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I apologize. That is the
That's
contextual of it.
Because
yes.
there's a big difference there.
No. You're correct. Yeah. Let me.
All
yes, right. I apologize. I copied and pasted that out of the document that I had from the Wizarding World match. Yes. So the context is in the real world. I added that context for them when I rewrote the question for the regular match. That's on me. My bad. Yeah. So what is the most useful in the real? Look, that question, I have the grammar of a second grader. I got the thing of it wrong. It's Amaru's giving me an F. Look at his teacher ass over there just failing me. So let's just go ahead and get the debate on, sir. But no, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I just want to say if we were arguing which spell was more useful in the Harry Potter world, like Amaru would just kick the living crap out of me because he knows Harry Potter so much better than I do that he can pull all the scenes. So I wanted to try to keep myself on the level playing field.
No, you're good. Yes, it is. Yeah. So for people at home, it is for the context in the real world. Okay. I'm going to go sit in the shame corner with Noah for a minute, and Jeremy, you have a minute on the clock.
Okay. All right, so I picked a couple that I think they're actually considered charms, but just kind of going through and looking at things, these two just stood out to me in terms of just scenarios of how I could use them in my life, other people could use them, and I really think that they're top of the list. One of them is called the Reparo charm. I'm sure Amaru is going to correct all my pronunciations because this is more his forte. But yeah, this is just basically with the wand you can cause things to be repaired, things that are broken, can be magically fixed. Probably the standout scene from the Harry Potter films of this is when Dumbledore and the other professor fix a room that's been destroyed. It all kind of comes back together. And then my other charm is the Confundus charm, which is basically you can create confusion in another person's mind, and you can even like plant ideas and plans in another person's mind. So it's kind of like the Inception spell, like I'm crossing different movies here.
All right, no problem. And then for the people watching and the judges at home, I will bring the banners back up with proper definitions just so you guys can understand exactly what it is going to be, because I know there's a lot within this question. That said, Amaru, you do have an opening minute when you're ready.
What are two things in your life that we do countless times, damn near every day? We open doors and we get things. And I don't know how many times I'm sitting on the couch and like, damn it, that thing is over there. I want to get it. Or maybe not as often, but I got to get in and out of my car every day. I got to get in and out of my house every day. And then when you're in places you don't know of, especially at work, you want to get into rooms, right? So the two spells that I chose to be the most useful in the real world are Accio and Alohomora. Accio allows you to grab things from a distance, and according to the movie, especially in that fourth film during the first task, Harry got his broom from a room and a door all the way in the castle. So it goes a long ways. And Alohomora unlocks doors for you. I don't know about anything else, but those are two things that I don't want to fumble for keys and I don't want to go get up stuff. Those are going to be the two most useful for me.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you, sir. 2 minutes on the clock.
Muted, sir. You are muted. You are muted.
Oh, yep, you are.
All right. Yeah, I think that Amaru and I came at this from a different perspective because Amaru's stuff is really basic. Like, I don't want to have to get off the couch and grab stuff, and I don't want to have to look for my keys, which are like the most basic things. Whereas I went, I'm a clumsy guy and I'm always breaking things, whether it's something in my car or my computer, my TV, or things in the house, just to be able to have it fixed immediately without me having to try to screw with it. That would really make a lot of change in my life. And I think that what would go into, say that you forgot your keys. Well, you just got to look for your keys, or, have somebody get you your keys. But compared to you broke your computer, like there's so much involved in getting the computer fixed. I think that there's more involved. It's more inconvenient. I think that's a bigger fix. It might not be a daily thing, but it's a thing that's going to impact your life more. And then the other one, Confundus, like, anytime that, it can save your life, because if you're in a life-threatening situation, it's getting heated, you can mess with that person's mind, get out of the situation without anything physical happening. I think that can happen in daily conversations, like you're in an argument with somebody and they just don't get what you're trying to say, and you can put something in their mind that will help them see it. Or somebody is just, they're continuing the conversation, they won't stop. You just want to put confusion in their mind, make them stop talking, get out of the situation. And probably for me in this moment in my life, the Confundus jar would allow me to mess with Amaru, mess with the judges, and win this match right now. And I would really like that, and the Confundus jar could do that for me. So I think that it's just more basic stuff, but mine, it's more like, these are going to improve the quality of your life in bigger situations. It's going to come into play in more powerful ways rather than just kind of daily inconveniences.
And time. All right, Amaru, back over to you.
So the question then becomes, what do you want in your everyday life? Do you want things to break? Do you want to confuse people? These are things that come up, sure, but they don't come up very often. Maybe they're a bit more impactful, but you don't want these things to happen in the first place. You're not expecting these things to happen in the first place. And for me, more useful is the things you are going to use day to day, hour by hour, in your everyday life that has got to happen. And it really is the two things. They might be basic, but most days life is basic. Life is the things you need to get done day to day, minute by minute, hour by hour. How many times have you been running late and then you're like, crap, I lost something, I don't know where it is, and now you got to go find it. It's just so much easier to allow your time management to just be so much better, to be able to do more things throughout the day if you don't have to worry about where everything is. Accio this, Accio that, Accio, put it together, where you're going, you're gone. Now, you brought up life-threatening situation. Sure, that's coming through. You can use yours in a scenario. I can use Alohomora in a scenario. If I'm running away and I need to get away from somebody and I run into a locked door, shit, Alohomora, in, out, keep it moving, keep it going, turn around, lock the door on the person. All those things, sure, are going to come up. And sure, maybe in your for repairing once every week, you can repair, which is pretty impactful, I'll tell you. But it's not going to be as impactful as not having to 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, not having to go looking for things more, and a lot of maybe half of those times when you really need them right then. And my last question before we get into the round, Jeremy, who are you cheating? What kind of lies are you telling? Why do you need to confuse people? What is it that you need to do? I mean, like, if you're a criminal, sure, confront somebody. It's going to be real useful. But if you're not a criminal or a mean person, that one I was just like, damn.
And time. All right. Questioning the character of our competitors will be a different thing afterwards. We can do that all night. But let's talk about the spells. Or, I mean, I guess if you both want to question each other's character, I don't know. The 4 minutes are yours. You can do whatever you like. Time starts when the first person speaks.
Well, Amaru asked me a question, so I'm going to answer. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to just make this quick. It really comes down to all of these magic spells will be very useful. But very honestly, the day-to-day thing, the week by week or month by month, or maybe once a year or hopefully never in your life, things that will be very impactful, do not amount up to the hundreds of times a month that you have to get things and unlock doors. And that to me is more useful because I want to be able to do things better day to day than have to get better at things that I actually don't ever want to experience in my life.
Okay, so to answer the question that you asked me about, wanting to confuse people and am I like a bad guy? Your unlocking charm is literally referred to as friendly to thieves. Like, how many doors do you need to unlock, Amaru? Like, are you constantly being locked out of places? I mean, really, the biggest use of that would be to try to get into places you're not supposed to get into. I think that was really what you would want that for. And I can just flip on you the confusion, like, you can choose to use it in an underhanded way and just confuse people and win debate matches. Like, I was kind of joking about that, like that'd be fun, but you can also use it, just in ways that aren't nefarious. Just, a conversation is going a bad direction. You can do a quick little, something to the person, change the way the conversation's going. If you see somebody is, about to walk off, they're about to injure themselves, you can mess with their mind a little bit, help there are ways that you can use it to be helpful. And incepting like ideas into people's heads and stuff like that to me is so unique. And you could come up with so many different ways to use that can be more useful than the more basic stuff. And I just think that, just have your keys by the door, don't lose your keys and try to leave things where you can remember where they are. That's something that you can control, but you can't control if an appliance is going to break, or if something really useful is going to break, or if your car is going to break down. Like, those are things that happen that you can't just fix. And it would be such a change of life to fix that. That's beyond just something you can do in your daily life to not be lazy.
Okay, so aside from the car and appliances breaking down, you just said just leave your keys by the door. Don't break things. Don't get yourself in situations where you
things break.
Things break, but how often do things break? On the small things that break are usually your fault. And most often you spill, you break. Just don't break things, and you don't want that to happen. The cars, the big appliances that break down, they break down once a month, once every other month, once every 3 months, once every 6 months. Everything that you're doing are for things that you hope actually never happen. So it's just for a just in case moment, which is definitely useful, but it's more useful when you can use magic to make the day-to-day things that you have to do. Not that you want to avoid, but that you have to do.
But those things are
for yourself.
Those things are in your control, is what I'm saying. Whether you have your keys or whether you've called ahead to have somebody let you into a building, that is something that it just takes that little extra effort to do. But when your car does break down, or when, your apartment is falling apart and all this kind of stuff, that's stuff that is out of your control that can really affect the quality of your life. And having to deal with other people. I have a lot of anxiety talking to people, dealing with creditors and stuff like that. Having a little extra mental intuition, a little extra mental ability to deal with that. And that can be a daily thing. I deal with equipment at work every day in my job. I deal with customers every day at my job. These are daily things, and they're things that will allow me a level of control that will make my life better. Whereas your stuff, it's more of a convenience. It's just, you don't want to have to deal with these small little details every day. So you want a shortcut.
More people.
And time. All right, so we're going on to the final minute of the round. Jeremy, you are back up first. You got 1 minute when you begin speaking.
Yeah, to me, most useful is, what are things that I can't do? What are things that are out of my control? I am a person that struggles with a certain amount of anxiety. And when I wake up every morning, I'm thinking about what is out of my control for today, and having to potentially run across a customer at work that's angry, that won't listen to reason, that, is pressuring me, or somebody on the street. These are the things that I'm concerned about, that having that mental ability to put an idea, to put something in their head, to confuse them for a second, to allow me to withdraw from the situation. Or, the things that break. I've had, I've had car accidents because of a system failure. I've had, my job being affected by computers and things not working. Like, these are the things that are out of your control that you can instantly fix, that, it takes the busy work out, it takes the stress out. And, there isn't that much stress involved with whether you leave your keys where you'll find them and lock the door.
Time. All right. And then Amaru, back over to you.
most useful in the real world has to apply to almost everybody in every situation. It's got to be useful for everyone. Not everybody does those jobs that needs to have those big things fixed on the daily. Not every stress that some people do, but everybody deals with the stresses of day-to-day life. How much more stressful is it getting to that car that breaks down is if you're running late and don't have your keys, and then you finally find your keys, you're like, good, I'm going, and then it breaks down. You have the stress from beforehand to lead to that stress. What about the little tiny stresses you deal with every day before you get to the people at work? It's much more easier to deal with if you actually had a nice day going into work. Everything that you've used for your spells are for just in case moments that don't happen every day. Mines are for the ones that happen every single day to every single person, that leaves you the little stresses that not only can make a great day even better, but can make a stressful day you get less stressful because you don't have to worry about the little things. Most useful is the most useful for everybody at most moments for all time.
All right, guys, another excellent round. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys. Sorry.
I was just saying that one was fun. I love that one.
That has to be one of the most unique debates we've ever had. That was something else. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. And it's interesting that we have Noah up first because I see the comments, buddy. I saw you call yourself a Wizarding World expert on the match once in the comment section. I read. So take your vote. Who gets your vote, man? And what was the main selling point for you?
I really wish I could talk more about it, but I have a meeting time now. Aaron, you might have to judge the next round for me.
That's fine.
But I'm gonna say Jeremy on this one because I was on the side of Amaru when he said Jeremy's spells are for things that you hope never happen, but Jeremy was able to counter that and explain why you would use it on a daily basis. And I feel like he was able to accurately say why the second spell, the two spells they both had that didn't seem to would be very useful. I think Jeremy was able to explain why his would be more useful than why Amaru's wasn't. So I'm saying Jeremy.
All right, Brandon, down to you, sir.
All right. Well, so again, really close battle. It came down to kind of the definition of usefulness. I think Amaru's would be used more, but in a way, he's kind of just like, I have my house automated with Google Now or Google Home. It's like, where's this? Where's that? Where's this? You're kind of automating things. But Jeremy really said it's useful. It's and things that are out of your control. Like there's nothing more. Like you get a flat tire, or you get your phone breaks and you broke the screen, and then you have to pay $600 for it. I think like he really, as someone has happened to, he's really played to me as that would be super useful, and being able to put ideas. I'm a teacher also. If I could put ideas into people's heads, that would, I would lose my job because I would have no purpose for being there. But that would just be, that would just be useful for me. It's just things that are out of your control. So I went with Jeremy just because Amaru was really good at it would make your quality of life more, and it's useful. You would use it a lot, but usefulness is things that you can't control. It's there's nothing a bummer than something breaking, being able to fix it. So just really that utility. I'm going with Jeremy.
All right. Well, it's good to know I had two professional teachers in here judging my spelling there. That feels nice. I'm from Florida.
Also, if you have Siri and you say Lumos, it usually turns. Never mind. It
usually turns on. I know what you're talking about.
It usually turns on the flashlight.
All right, guys. We'll go ahead and put you guys in the back because right now we are tied 2-2, which means we are going on to sudden death. It's not the blind round, Amaru. You can take what you want away from it. It didn't turn on either for you. Huh?
Oh no, it didn't. It worked before. They turned it off. You sons of bitches. Whatever. Sorry, I was trying to show him that he was right, and it didn't work. You suck, Siri. You suck.
Google, the country's about to get hit with a hurricane. Now is not the time to turn off the flashlight option, guys. Come on. So let's go ahead and get into our tiebreaker round, which for the number of contenders matches is the sudden death speed round. So the way that this works is at this point now it is a best 2 of 3. We have 3 questions remaining, so they have to win 2 points in order to win the match. The first 2 questions in our speed round have been given to the competitors ahead of time. They have had a chance to prep them. Should we have to go to the third and final question, they will have to snap, answer, and immediately go to the debate. The way that this works is the competitors will get 60 seconds to open. That will be followed by 90 seconds to respond, and then 30 seconds to close. That is each individual. There is no open discussion round. Following that, the judges will come on screen, at which point they will give their deliberation, and the plan is to move through this as quickly as possible. We're going to go ahead and get into the first of our speed round questions. And this question is actually a replay question. It's a question that was previously used before, of all places, in a title match. This was actually used in the original title match of Joe Fairley versus Henry Sanchez. The question here is, I should have done it the other way, really. The question is, what is Chris Rock's best movie? And the answers that were given in that match were Dogma and The Longest Yard. Now, that was a blind round, so they answered without knowing the question. But here we do have 2 competitors who gave the answers they best feel suits it. And we are going to be sticking with the same as before, Amaru on the odds, Jeremy on the evens. So Amaru, you're up first this time around. I will give you your timer, and you have a minute on the clock when you begin speaking.
You want to have a movie with Chris Rock, you get him doing what he's doing best and playing what he knows, a comedian. And because he's doing that, the bad acting he does everywhere else isn't a problem, because in the movie Top 5, his ability to do him with the great acting of everyone else by Rosario Dawson and everybody else around them being their authentic selves, that great acting, not having to worry about it being cringy, makes the comedy better. And the comedy is made better. When the comedy is made better, the drama hits dealing with Chris Rock's alcoholism. And there's 2 scenes that epitomize this. The opening of Rosario and Chris Rock talking basically boils the movie down to, it's a story about rigorous honesty of oneself through the lens of how fake Hollywood can be. And there's a movie where Chris Rock is mad at Rosario Dawson, and he says the key point of AA is rigorous honesty, and the entire movie is just a conversation that is absolutely hilarious, greatly acted, has dramatic weight about how you need to be honest with yourself at all times.
And time. All right, Jeremy, back over to you. Opening minute.
Yeah, I believe that the best Chris Rock performance in the best film that Chris Rock's been in was very earlier in his career. It's the 1991 crime epic New Jack City, which was starring and directed Mario Van Peebles. This is about the crack cocaine game and the police that have to deal with it. Wesley Snipes is absolutely unforgettable as Nino Brown, drug kingpin in this film. Great supporting cast, including Ice-T in this. It was a really groundbreaking movie dealing with this subject at the time. I know there was a lot of people went to the theater. It got really raucous. It really kind of kicked off that whole movement of black themed films like Juice and Boys in the Hood. And it was really trend setting with a lot of that, but it's just, when you watch it now, it's tight, it's powerful, it's thrilling. And Chris Rock, he plays kind of the street crackhead that these guys, need to get information from. And he's so good and convincing in this film. And it makes you wonder why he didn't do more dramatic work later on. He's really awesome in this film.
All right, Amaru, back over to you. 90 seconds.
You mentioned Juice and Boys in the Hood, and both of those movies came out the same year or a year later than New Jack City. And the issue with New Jack City is New Jack City does not age well at all. It makes caricatures out of black stereotypes. The line delivery is so cringy, and talking about bang, bang, baby, making them just seem so hip and just over-the-top caricatures of these very, very tight themes, but it is not directed well. It is not acted well. Chris Rock's crying face is just so over the top. You can tell that Mario Van Peebles tries to do the themes well, but it looks like a B movie compared to movies made at the same time like Juice and Boys in the Hood that deal with the same themes, on top of like the editing and cinematography coming from extreme close-ups to really big wide shots makes it really hard to follow what's going on. fun. The action sequences was there is a lot of, or you get the Austin Powers when guys get shot, you get the falling noise. And just everything about the film, which hurts my heart, is just so dated. It is an incredible Wesley Snipes performance surrounded by a bunch of caricatures. While top 5 is the funniest, the best performed, the most dramatic, great character stories that uses this through line of Chris Rock's character trying to just transition to a new space in his career, but being pulled in different directions to be fake, where he needs to really be real.
And time. All right, Jeremy, 90 seconds on your end.
I think that what Amaru is kind of reacting to New Jack City is the fact that it's kind of over the top, but that's, it's an action film, and I don't think that that's a bug. I think that that's a feature. I think the fact that these guys are like, these cops are out on the street and they're trying to act, like they're tough and they're hip. It's kind of a persona. That's kind of the theme of the movies. Everybody's putting on a persona to try to get ahead, to try to win, to try to be the top dog. And I think that as an action movie, all of that kind of over the top crazy stuff really makes you get into it. It really makes it visceral and fun. But underneath it all, there really is a heart. I think that, Wesley Snipes as Nino Brown, he isn't just a one-dimensional villain. He is a guy who's trying to, do something, really create an empire, do something good, but he's got to do what he's got to do, and deal with the cops and take them out. And he brings humanity that. And I think that Chris Rock, he cries in a way that's kind of ridiculous and pathetic because he's a ridiculous and pathetic character. I think that you completely buy him. I think that he really taps into that street guy who, he's doing his thing and he's snapping along, but then he breaks down and you see that he's just a broken guy. That's who these guys are. And the cops are using him in a way that, makes you realize they're not the heroes that you thought they were. Talking about top 5, this is a movie that's about a successful comedian and his reality TV star girlfriend. It's not something that everybody can relate to. It's something that, is true to Chris Rock, but it's not involving for everybody.
All right. So we have 30 seconds left on the clock for each competitor. Amaru, you're up first.
Top 5 is about a comedian who got successful doing things that he didn't want to do, like ride-along type movies, and this wedding that he does not want to be a part of, that is a reality show where he really just be in love, and his conversations and the reality he talks with in terms of coming to terms with his alcoholism and coming to terms with this interviewer, going to task on him, what makes that better? Beverly Hills Cop, Menace to Society, Set It Off, Belly, Juice, all of those movies do the over-the-top representations of black crime with heart, but they don't become a B movie like New Jack City does.
And time. All right, and then Jeremy, your final 30 seconds.
I see no difference between New Jack City and Juice in terms of the budget, the quality of the acting. I think that it's a larger than life movie made by black people that, is doing this crazy action story, but it has a message to it. And what do you relate to more? The drug stuff that people deal with, the crime that's going out there, or this comedian who hasn't made the choices in his rich life that he wanted to make? I don't think that top 5 is as involving. I don't think that it's as funny as it could be. And Chris Rock does out of character performance in New Jack City.
All right, guys. So as before with the speed round, as I go ahead and bring our judges in with the speed round, because we're trying to keep it moving, the judges are only going to say who they think won the round. There won't be any deliberation. So with that said, Brandon, you're up first. Who won it for you?
Amaru.
All right, and Sean.
The correct answer is Pootie Tang.
All right. I'll take that. All right, so Amaru does get the first point there. We'll go ahead and drop the judges in the back as we will move on to the second speed round question, which is in honor of him having probably his best film in a long fucking time come out earlier this year. What is the worst Michael Bay film of the 2000s? I liked Ambulance. It was a good film.
I just needed to remember it, and I still need to watch it.
Yeah, honestly, it's solid. So with that said, what is the worst Michael Bay film of the 2000s? Let's shit on a guy I just complimented. With that said, though, Jeremy, you are up first, sir. You got 60 seconds to open when ready.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go with, I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest Michael Bay fan. I like some of his movies more than others, but really in his whole career, including the 2000s, there's only been one movie that caused me physical pain to sit through, and that was the second Transformers film, Revenge of the Fallen. I think that this is just, it's all of the worst tendencies of Michael Bay. It's super long, like 2.5 hours long. When in a Transformers movie, it doesn't need to be. It's lots of frenetic action that's hard to follow. You don't know which robot is what. It's just the worst lowest common denominator humor. There's two, robot sidekick characters that are just racial stereotypes. They're just impossible to watch. There's a gag involving a big construction Transformers balls. It's a really painful movie to watch that is just, it's all the worst of Michael Bay. I don't think that there's any movie that is more painful, more ugly.
All right. Apologize there with the answer numbers. I wrote those in backwards. Amaru, you are up next.
Michael Bay low-key sucks. But however, while the Transformers aren't that great, he made a movie in, I believe, 2001 that was basically a dry run for Transformers. And he did it for one of the most important real-life events of all time, and that is Pearl Harbor. Everything you hate about Transformers, horrible love stories, wooden performances, paper-thin screenplay, bang-up action surrounded by hours of boring, uninteresting characters is given to you in a 3-hour movie, watching Ben Affleck come back to life and have a love triangle with Kate Beckinsale and Josh Hartnett. The 40 minutes that he has in the middle of Pearl Harbor of actually showing what the death was like, great, because he does action great. He excels at that. But the first hour and then the hour afterwards is just a lot of boring snooze, especially that first hour where Ben Affleck comes back from the dead. And it's just, oh, gosh.
Time.
Yes.
All right. Over to you, Jeremy. 90 seconds.
I mean, Amaru just admitted that there's an hour of Pearl Harbor that's really good. The final hour when the Pearl Harbor attack happens, I think that's some of Michael Bay's best directing, some of his best work. He had, the cooperation of the military, which he does in all his films. I think that, yeah, there's a soap opera love story that, Pearl Harbor does in the first half of the film, which it's kind of hearkening back to older Hollywood movies of like the 40s and 50s. They would have like the soap opera-y love stories and stuff, and then they would have the big war sequences. I think he's trying to pay homage to that stuff. He doesn't do it well, but I don't think it's as painful as waiting through 2.5 hours of a Transformers movie with a story that makes no sense at all. At least in the first Transformers film, you're introduced to Sam. He finds out about the Transformers. He has a connection with Bumblebee. There's like a way into this movie just propels you into, there's some plot involving some MacGuffin thing that they've got to get, and then maybe eventually Optimus Prime's going to die or something. Or I really, it's so hard to follow. And it isn't true to the material. Like, if you're going to make a bad Transformers movie, at least make it true. Like, there's a thing in this film where there's like a human hot chick who turns out to be a Transformer that, like, it just betrays the whole mythology of Transformers. If you know the toys and the material, it's just a mess. At least Pearl Harbor, there is a movie there that you can glom on.
And time. All right, Amaru, over to you.
That action sequence is in the middle hour of the movie, not the end. And if it would have ended the movie, it would have been better. But we have to sit through the 1 hour love triangle beforehand that is so boring. And then after that 40 minutes of Pearl Harbor, we get another hour of horrible dialogue and predictable story and some action sequences that not as great. If you are going to do a Pearl Harbor movie, which is so important, you got to give some insight into war and the atrocities of it. It was a nice thing to look at the Japanese sides of thing. If you didn't just introduce a character, have him shoot a plane and make him go away and only have one line about, oh, I would be brilliant if we didn't go to war, and then do nothing else with those characters. At least in Transformers, which isn't about an important historical event, they know what the movie is, and they do a lot of things. A lot of it sucks, but they actually do a lot of things a lot better. They actually allow Megan Fox to do more than just stand around in tight clothing. They give her a little bit of story. But even better than that, John Turturro Kevin Dunn, Julie White are some of the funniest they've ever been. The guy who plays Ramon Rodriguez gets to play off of John Turturro, and the action is always brilliant, especially the scene where Optimus dies. That scene where he actually is dead is as impactful as the 1986 version where you were like, oh my gosh, that really happened. And to speak on the stereotypical characters, they suck, but at least they have a little bit of heart to them, while everything about Pearl Harbor gives no importance to the most important thing in history.
All right, and then we have 30 seconds left on the clock for each. Jeremy, you're up first.
I don't know what action scenes you were watching in the second Transformers film. I think that it's incomprehensible. Optimus Prime's death has no weight to it. It's just thrown in there. Something happens with Sam going to like robot heaven or something that makes no sense. Pearl Harbor, yeah, it's soap opera-y, it's whatever, but at least there you can get into a story about soldiers, even if it's kind of weak. You can climb onto that, and I think that the fact that he worked with the military and worked with a great supporting cast of Alec Baldwin and Cuba Gooding Jr. that brings some heart to a real story that he did care about.
Time. All right, and then Amaru, back over to you.
Alec Baldwin is in the beginning and the end of that movie giving every cliche leader line ever. Cuba Gooding Jr. does three things. He boxes, he shoots a gun on a plane, and then he's given a medal. The first black person to get a medal, and he's given 10 minutes of screen time and almost no dialogue. You cannot do that to a movie for 3 hours like Pearl Harbor, at least with Transformers, every single one, and Revenge of the Fallen. They know what they are. They give you the action that you want. It does have a great scene of his death, and it at least uplifts some of the characters of what you know what's going on.
And time. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring the judges in to make their deliberations. With that said, Sean, I go to you first. With just your vote, who gets it? Jeremy, and to Noah.
Amaru.
All right, which means we'll go to Brandon.
Amaru.
And your winner by a final score of 4-2, Amaru Moses, coming out with the win. All right, Amaru, congratulations, sir. That is a huge win to pull out in the number one contenders match, 7-1. That is a record that quite literally only matches the current champion of Henry Sanchez at 8-1. It is a record to behold. How are you feeling after that?
I'm feeling good. This was legit. Every single one, I was like, this could go either way. And very honestly, I was not expecting to win the Saoirse one. I was expecting to win the Wizarding World one, and then when Jeremy gave me his reason, I was like, damn, that is good. That is very good. So every single one either went how I expected, or I was like, that could go to either of us. Jeremy is an amazing debater. And I love these kind of matches where I don't got to get mad at the judges. No matter what happens, I'm like, yep, I get it. Yep, I get it. If you would give it to him, if you would give it to me, perfect. This was a battle, and I'm really glad I was able to pull this one out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was an incredible sight to see. And so that means at this point, you have won the tournament. Congratulations. I mean,
thank
considering
you for everybody who offered
you
to let me in.
Yeah, I mean, literally, for people who may not remember, because we started a little while ago, Amaru kind of got the bonus spot in the tournament because by popular demand, almost every single person who may have had to drop out when I asked for alternates they would like to invite asked Amaru to take their place. I even had to ask him more than once because it looked like we may have a dropout. And so I just figured at the end of the day, it's like I teased him so much. Let me give him the opportunity. And again, he's taken the most of it. So now that you've won, as I said way back at the start, this isn't a forced title match necessarily. What you have won is a champ's token, which is the same thing that Joe holds. It means that you have the ability to challenge for a title match at any point that you would like. Now at 7-1, unfortunately, it means that there's not anyone that's really close enough left within the year that's not in the tournament that I could pair you against. So you do have the ability, if you want to right now, to put forth your challenge against Henry Sanchez, or you could choose to wait and hang on till next year and see what else goes down, that is totally up to you. So what is your thinking about that right now?
While as much as I want my free time to not have to like think about these things, because life has gotten very busy, I want Henry. I have not faced Henry in anything. No debate, no, and we have a lot of the same interests. We're pretty cool, and I would love to debate that man. I think it would be just a big the knockout, drag out. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I definitely give me Henry. I will take Henry whenever you need to go. Let's do it.
All right. Well, we're going to make this a spectacle, sir. So, guys, congratulations to Amaru once again. He is going to cash in immediately and take on Henry. And that, guys, will be the final match of this Movie Battleground year, coming at you in December, the final week that we are airing matches, which means, for your schedule, probably sometime in November.
I was going to say, you said immediately, I was like, he's not backstage because I'm not doing this right now.
No, God, no. That'd be. Are you kidding me? He would relish at that idea way too much. He doesn't know we're recording this right now. So
because you just set up backstage. Yeah, we got another one at 9, and I was like, immediately, no.
That's I don't legally torture people here. It's implied, okay? But sir, again, an excellent match, an excellent run. You're now 5 matches undefeated, which again is incredibly impressive. I'll throw out one more stat. You and Henry both have another thing in common. Your only losses are both to Jay Burns. You literally share the same kryptonite. It's actually impressive. But with that said, sir, congratulations. I will send you to the back, and we will see you in December for that match as I go ahead and introduce your opponent. And Jeremy, I mean, again, there's no getting around facts in situations like this. In big matches, the loser is always having less fun than the winner. I think that's just something that we all know. But your performance today was admirable. Multiple times you took answers that were a little outside the box, especially with that 60s question. Like, as somebody who's gone through film school level classes, I have heard of Breathless. I had to look up Village of the Damned, so that's a hard sell. You outmaneuvered one of the biggest Harry Potter fans that we have in a Wizarding World round, and impressively so, because your argument was great. There was a lot of positives to take from this match, but overall, how are you feeling?
A lot of times, I played a lot of matches in these leagues since 2017, so it's like 5 years now. I would say the majority of the times it's oh God, I lost and I just want to forget about that. And when that match gets posted online, I'm like avoiding it. I don't want to mention it or think about it. And then occasionally there's one where it's like, I don't feel bad about that loss like that. I feel just as good about that match as I do about some of my wins. And I would gladly share that match for other people to watch. I'll Facebook it. So, hey, check out this match that I was in, even though I didn't win, because it was a great match. And this is one of those. I can really only think of like 2 or 3 others out of 100 that I've played, because I do think that I did bring my A game. I think that I gave great. I didn't get in my head like I've done before and got nervous and kind of, psych myself out a bit. I think that I brought my A game, pretty much every argument, and I had to keep up with Amaru, who's just tremendous. I mean, he's great. He had great arguments. He was obviously so well prepared, but like he said, I think a lot of those could have gone either way. I think that, it was a flip of the coin for the judges. And I feel really good about that. And I just think that you guys had some great questions tonight. Obviously, the Harry Potter one is so fun. And I knew that. I was like, hey, even if I'm losing this match, which I was, by the way, going into that question, I'm still going to have fun with this question. I don't care. I'm not going to let myself be nervous and psyched out and unhappy. I'm going to have fun with this question, no matter what has happened going into that. And I think that you kind of feel that kind of energy, probably watching the match back. So thank you for this opportunity. My season this year coming back to this league has been a great experience, and you kind of had to talk me into it a little bit, Aaron. I think we can kind of reveal to people, I had to think about it a bit, but life.
I think it's commonplace knowledge, anyone who's ever spoken to someone who's been around long enough, that there was a lot about the environment previously. Not just, I, for one, I always try to keep Battleground as positive as possible. Just the environment in general amongst some people in the fan community, that was not the most positive. And unfortunately, experiences bled over into Battleground. And I feel like I do my best now to manage any little thing that comes up the best that I can. And also, I think people are just, there's more people that are here for fun, and I hope it keeps it more positive for everyone involved. So, and it's been great to have you, sir.
And I just think I was in a place in my life where, hey, you know what, let's try this again and have fun. You know, some of the craziness going on in the leagues was no longer kind of going on in my life, and I, you know, taking a little bit of a break. So, you know, I thank you so much for the coming out to me, for talking me into it a little bit and giving me the opportunity. It's been a great year playing these 8 matches. I can't even believe it's been 8 matches. And yeah, whatever happens next year, I'm here. I'm in, and you know, I think that, you know, I can even do as fun as today was and as great a match as it is. I think I could do better and maybe finally climb that hill at some point. So I'm fully invested in doing that.
Well, I'm glad to hear so, sir, because you are, you know, I've stopped saying the exact phrase that I used to say of, you know, you're the best player to have never won the title, because I felt after a while that adds a little bit of unwarranted pressure. But I mean, you're a friend of mine. We're one of the few that have been here since day one, and I always love having people like that in the league still, especially because a lot of the newer people I'm still getting to know to an extent. So it's nice to always have familiar faces around and people that I've known for a long time. And I look forward, man. Yeah, unfortunately, it won't be till next year till you're back, but it's glad to hear that you're motivated, you're ready, and we're going to have a hell of a roster after this tournament, man. It's going to shake up some stats for people. I've already seen some of the matches in the tank. There are some surprises in store. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it shakes out, and I look forward to having you back, sir. So we will see you then on the Battleground. Enjoy your time off. And guys, that is it for an incredible #1 contenders match. Again, to recap, in case you tuned in an hour and a half plus into this video, Amaru Moses does take the victory. He is going to move on to play Henry Sanchez in a title match, which will go up as the final match of the season. With obviously the winner of that match then taking on the tournament winner into next year. Speaking of that tournament, it is in full swing. As I said, 2 matches have already gone up this weekend, so check out Chad Webb versus Alejandro Hernandez, and check out Jordan Owens versus Jay Burns. They're both great matches. You guys can check those out. Next weekend, coming up on the Battleground, or next week, this upcoming Wednesday, we actually have 2 players debuting, and they're both players that you guys have seen as judges, but they haven't yet competed. One of them, Brandon Cohen, was here tonight. The other, Sean Sandberg, will be his opponent, so they will be entering the arena as debaters for the first time, taking each other on. And then next weekend, we have our tournament match, which is Alex Martinez versus Dr. Spaceman Alan Shepard. And on Sunday, we have Chris Diaz taking on Kevin Poss. So we have some fun matches over the next week. Tune in and check those out. Congratulations to Amaru. Thank you to Jeremy. Thank you to my judges, Noah McCausland. For anyone wondering why he was switching locations, he is actually currently on, I believe it's Coast Guard reserves for the hurricane that is coming over Florida this weekend, and he was able to, because they're still waiting on orders, to take time to be with us. So thank you, sir. Stay safe out there. Thank you as well to Brandon and to Sean for being here. And on behalf of all the producers here at Movie Battleground, my name is Aaron Knoll, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.